Hello and welcome back to the Daily Bible Summary, where the goal is to renew your mind as we read a new chapter every day and ask, what can I learn? Today's episode is entitled, No Fruit, Only Leaves. Read Mark 11 if you have not, and if you have, let's get started. In today's episode, Jesus and his disciples are approaching Jerusalem. And when they reach Bethphage and Bethany at the Mount of Olives, Jesus sends two disciples ahead with specific instructions. They're supposed to go into the village where they're going to find a colt that has never been ridden. They're to untie it and bring it back for him. Now, if anyone questions them as to what they're doing, they're supposed to say, the Lord has need of it. And everything happens exactly as Jesus says. They find the colt just where Jesus said it would be. Some bystanders question them, and they give the explanation that Jesus provided, and, the bystanders let them bring the animal to Jesus. The disciples throw their cloak on it, and Jesus sits on the colt. Now, here's what's special about this. Although Mark does not explain, Matthew did. In doing this, Jesus is fulfilling Zechariah's prophecy about the Messiah entering Jerusalem riding on a donkey. This isn't just transportation. It's a statement. He is presenting himself as Israel's promised king. While many kings used horses, in Israel, the preferred mount for the king was the donkey. Solomon was honored as the heir apparent by David, as he was told to ride through the city on David's donkey. We read about this in 1 Kings chapter 1, verse 33 and following. And this crowd gets it. Many spread their cloaks on the road. Others cut leafy branches from the fields and spread them. And they began to shout, Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the coming kingdom of our father David. Hosanna in the highest. They're proclaiming Jesus as the Messiah who will restore David's kingdom. Of course, some of this crowd, no doubt, will be among those shouting, Crucify! By the end of the week. But as Jesus enters into Jerusalem that evening, he goes into the temple. He looks around at everything, and because it's already late, he heads back to Bethany with the 12. But in the morning, the fireworks begin. The next day, as they're leaving Bethany, Jesus is hungry. He sees a fig tree in the distance with leaves on it, so he goes to see if there's any fruit. When he gets there, he finds nothing but leaves. And Mark tells us it wasn't the season for figs. And we see then that Jesus still curses the tree. He says, May no one ever eat fruit from you again. Now, this does seem strange, doesn't it? I mean, why curse the fig tree for not having fruit when it's not even fig season? Well, hold that thought for just a moment, because what Jesus does next will help us to understand. When Jesus enters the temple this morning, what he finds there makes him angry. People are buying and selling in the temple courtyards. Money changers have set up tables. Merchants are selling pigeons for sacrifices. And the people are using the temple courtyard as a shortcut to carry their merchandise through. Jesus starts driving them out. He overturns the money changer tables. He overturns the seats of those selling pigeons. He won't allow anyone to carry anything through the temple. And he's teaching them, Is it not written, My house shall be called a house of prayer for all the nations? But you have made it a den of robbers. Notice that phrase, all the nations. This was the court of the Gentiles where this was happening. It was the only place non-Jews could come to pray and to worship God. And yet what we've got is the religious leaders allowing it to be turned into a marketplace. A lot of animals in the background, people passing through. I mean, imagine somebody coming through your worship assembly from one end of the room to the other end while you're singing. Prevents serious worship of God. And for the Gentiles, it was creating a great hindrance. How noisy it must have been with all of those animals and all of that change being exchanging hands. The chief priests and the scribes hear about this temple cleansing, and they start looking for a way to destroy him. Mark knows that they are afraid of Jesus because the whole crowd is astonished at his teaching. The next morning, as they pass by the same fig tree, Peter takes notice. Rabbi, look, the fig tree that you cursed has withered. And sure enough, the tree is dead, withered from the roots up. Now we can see what Jesus is doing here. The fig tree is a picture. When the fig trees have leaves, you expect there to be fruit. But just like that tree had leaves but no fruit, Israel had the outward signs of religion, but no spiritual fruit, at least on the leadership side. The temple, the sacrifices, the rituals, all leaves no fruit. And just as Jesus cursed the fig tree, judgment is coming on this fruitless religious system. But Jesus doesn't leave the disciples focused on the withered tree. He uses it to teach them also about faith in prayer. He says, have faith in God. Truly I say to you, whoever says to this mountain, be taken up and thrown into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that what he says will come to pass, it will be done to him. It will be done for him. Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. Well, this may seem to be a blank check to pray for anything we want. What we believe to be ours, let me say that again. What we believe to be ours has to be based on something tangible in God's Word. A promise made, a principle exemplified, some reason to want it. Faith is always based on God's Word, not on the whims or wishes of our desires, especially the lustful ones. Then he adds this, whenever you stand praying, forgive, if you have anything against anyone, so that your Father also, who is in heaven, may forgive you your trespasses. Faith, prayer, and forgiveness, it's all connected. Then they come back to Jerusalem, and as Jesus is walking in the temple, the chief priests, scribes, and elders confront him. They demand to know, by what authority are you doing these things, and who gave you this authority? Apparently, they're asking about the temple cleansing. Who does he think he is, coming in and disrupting their operation like that? Jesus responds with his own question. If you answer my question, I will answer yours. Was the baptism of John from heaven or from man? Now they're trapped. If they say John's baptism was from heaven, Jesus will simply ask why they did not believe him. And if they say it was from man, well, the whole crowd will turn on him because everyone believed that John was a prophet. So they give the only answer they can. We do not know. Jesus then says, neither will I tell you by what authority I do these things. They refuse to acknowledge John's authority from God, so they forfeit the right to hear about Jesus' authority. They're really not seeking the truth here. They're simply trying to protect their position. So in this chapter, what is it that we can learn? First, God cares about the heart, not just the outward appearance. The fig tree had leaves, but no fruit. Through the leaders that opposed him, we see much temple activity, but little true worship. Yeah, let me say that again too. We see much temple activity, but not a lot of true worship. Israel's leadership has religion, but not relationship with God. Are we presenting an outward show of spirituality while our hearts are empty? God isn't impressed by our religious activity if it doesn't produce fruit of genuine love for Him and for others. What areas of your spiritual life are full of leaves and yet no fruit? A second lesson is that we can make religion about our convenience instead of God's glory. The temple leaders turned the house of prayer into a marketplace. They profited from worship and hindered the Gentiles from performing worship to God themselves. Are we using our faith for our own benefit rather than for God's purposes? When worship becomes about what we get out of it, comfort, status, profit, routine, instead of giving God what He deserves, we've turned His house into a den of robbers. Is your spiritual life centered on God, or is it more centered on yourself? Tomorrow, Lord willing, we'll move into Mark chapter 12, where Jesus tells the parable of the wicked tenants and teaches about the greatest commandment. As we reflect on the difference between leaves and fruit and the need to have both, we continue each day to renew our minds.